For March 11th, we have a few things that are happening. Luckily, they're not just all teams, but there, as always, there's a lot of changes happening within the teams. But we have a few things outside of that as well. The first thing I want to touch base is a change that came, and I mentioned this before, everybody, but the Message Center experience changed. And so if you're in Message Center, you may have noticed this literally within the last week or so that this is happening. It's still actually deploying, going through the end of this March when that's going to happen. But I want you to notice a couple of things specifically about this, is that the information, the metadata specifically, is moving to the right, so it's easy for you to be able to scan, take a look at it, and then go. They are adding, and it's not consistent yet because they have some old messages that are in there, a summary about what's going on with that particular high level, what's going on with that particular message, right? So making sure that feature change. So making sure you take a look at those things. Of course, when I jumped in to do the deck for today, it changed in my tenant. So getting used to it, making sure I understand how it's laid out. But know that that's happening right now. Worldwide, started here early March and will be finishing up here late March. So keep an eye on that. Let's jump into SharePoint. We do have a new feature, new section backgrounds happening for pages and your news pages, right? SharePoint pages and news pages. There are two pieces to this. There's a gradient piece, and then there's a custom image piece. They're rolling out separately, right? So keep in mind, they're two different components, but part of the same Message Center post, right? So this is really for your SharePoint page and news articles that you have, and for the authors that are going to be in there. So make sure you let them know of this particular update that's happening, right? So they'll be able to choose different gradients, different things for their sections on their pages or their news articles, just to give it a little bit more variety and easier to be able to pop out. OneDrive for Business, you're going to see a change when you create, and especially for those who are actually creating documents from the web browser in your OneDrive, you're going to see this happening here, targeted early March to late March, and then standard late March to mid-April. So when you click on the Add New button, you're going to get a window that's going to give you all these different templates from the template for the Microsoft template side of things, or you could actually have your company templates in there as well. Word, Excel, PowerPoint are the options in there. It just makes it a lot easier to be able to get started. You don't necessarily have to be in the app to be able to do that, which is one of the options that you have currently. Make sure you notify your users of this change. It's going to be a big change, especially if they're using web. Exchange Online, there's going to be a little bit of a different thing. So you know right now you have this capability of saying, I'm going to be attending in person, or I'm going to be attending, right? And so now you're going to be able to say if you can do it in person, right? Or a hybrid RSVPing, right? So that's the idea of this, right? So mid-February, it's already started to happen. To late March, you're going to start seeing this, right? So you're going to be able to toggle this and say in-person event when you're setting this up, and then people can RSVP, yes, I'm going to be in there. No, I'm going to be virtual, right? So then they can decide, okay, well, I may need to add a Teams meeting to that type of thing. So you're going to find this in a couple different spots. Specifically, you're going to see this in the web and in new, unfortunately, for us, some of us who are not in new Outlook. I'm in Classic, but you'll still be able to see it in those particular scenarios. Another Exchange Online piece that's happening, this is for your admins, specifically the ability in the new Exchange Admin Center experience, right? So that's that. If you haven't flipped over that, you're not going to see this yet, but it's going to be the ability to be able to view and go into other mailboxes in this new experience, right? Happening worldwide in GCC here late February into late March. And again, it's specifically for your Exchange admins who would be needing that in that new experience. And by the way, as a sub note, they did say that the old EA, Exchange Admin Center, will be retired in mid-2024. So for those admins that haven't been using the new Exchange experience, make sure you start working through that. All right, let's jump to the Teams Admin Center. And we have an admin scenario happening there where now we're adding the ability to be able to search for resource accounts. And that's a big deal. I mean, we want to be able to find anything and everything, especially, one of the things that I work with daily with customers is around Teams Voice and Teams Phone. And being able to see those resource accounts specifically for call queues and auto attendance is going to make my life easy to be able to go and then see what's licensed, what's not licensed, and make sure all those pieces are in place. So it joins the ability to be able to do policies and settings and emergency locations, and now resources to be able to help out with that. Just make sure your administrators know that this change is coming in the near future. All right, so meeting options. This has been something that's been out for quite a while. And we've just been adding a lot more stuff into the meeting option side of things. We're getting to a point where now it's really difficult to find things. So in this particular feature update happening here in April, you'll be able to actually there'll be categories on the left-hand side. So you're navigating through the categories to find the appropriate setting for your meetings, right? Specifically, this is going to be for organizers and co-organizers that would be able to have access to this. Also know this is just going to be in new Teams. You're going to see this, and obviously web is going to be a part of that as well. But make sure that you're updating your end users about this change, because it is going to be a drastic change and people are going to be a little confused when it first comes out. So make sure you take some time, let them know about that. And by the way, they do say specifically later on in meeting options for these categories are going to happen later on. They haven't said exactly when that's going to happen. So that's when you're in a meeting and you go into meeting options, they're going to bring those categories in there as well. Another thing you're going to see from a Teams side of things is the Teams meetings recap, right? So number one, you'll get it no matter what, even if you have Teams Premium or not. But understand that if you have Premium, you're going to get a little extra special stuff in these recaps. Now, what you're going to see is you may have seen in the past when you finish up a meeting, they're going to get that recording piece is going to be in there, right? So now that recap tab, which is usually at the top after the meeting is done, you're going to see a recap section inside the chat that's going to give you some of the quick links to that information in there, to the recording, to any documents that were added to that meeting, transcript. Again, depending upon what you have, if you have Teams Premium or not, right? Teams Premium locks things like list of speakers, name mentions, and suggested tasks as a quick link to get to that section. So it's easier to be able to find that information for those people who have been in that meeting right within that chat. Notice the dates happening here, targeted early April, standard early to late April, and then GCC early May to mid-May. Another one, and I know at first I wasn't sure about this one myself. However, now that this feature's been out, I'm actually using it, and I actually like it because it's easier for me to find my group chats, right? So the ability to be able to change the avatar for your group chats, right? So it could be an emoticon, it could be a picture that they actually have some images that you can use. That's happening here mid-March to late March. Internally, I've been using it here a little bit, and it's a lot easier for me to find the things that I'm looking for pretty quickly because of that. You would be able to also upload your own image, custom image, right, for a scenario that you have, right? Maybe it's an event coming up and you have a logo for it that you could have that internal chat, make it easier to find that information. Just helps make it easier to find your chats and then work with that group, right? So notify your users this change. I saw a couple of thumbs up on that. I'm glad that you are also with me. I think it's going to be helpful. All right, so some quick mentions I do want to say. Again, these are things I want to make sure it's on your radar, but not a lot of detail. A couple things that I thought were interesting. Now, if you remember in the not too far past, we talked about Planner. There is going to be a new Planner app coming. It's going to be, and I believe we talked about that a little bit during that session. To-do, Planner, Microsoft Project is kind of going into one particular app, which is going to be your Planner app inside Microsoft Teams. So keep that in mind. And by the way, if you do have Copilot, you're going to get some Copilot goodness that's going to be associated to that as well. Another feature that I thought was interesting, and this is for Microsoft Outlook for Windows as well as web. And now the one for Windows, that's new version of that. You're going to be able to have conditional formatting for your emails as they come in, right? The ability to be able to say, hey, as an email comes out from this particular person or from this email address, I want you to color code that, right? So being able to do those types of formatting with it may make it easier for you to find it. You know, I don't know about you, I like to use my flags to be able to find information, but if I added a little extra color, I can make that a high priority depending upon the person that I want it to come from. Couple other things I want to make sure that you guys know. The ability down here to be able to view, download, and delete Microsoft OneDrive for Business transcript files is coming. And they'll be moving basically those transcript files moving to OneDrive so that you can be able to manage those if that's the case. And then from a voicemail greeting piece, this is actually something I want to bring up. This feature is being retired. And they were able to get to almost like 99.04% done. However, there was that 0.06, a bunch of people, for some reason, it just was not moving over. And they basically come out with this message center post basically saying is that when it moves over, you're going to lose your custom greeting. So you're going to have to recreate that. So understand they're just basically doing a warning out there. If it migrates over, by the way, you may lose that custom greeting. You're going to have to redo it. Just understand that's part of the reason why that happened. All right, some updated things I want to pull out. We talked about a couple of these things from last time or a couple previous sessions. Collaborative notes in Teams meeting recording got pushed back, and that collaborative notes are what you can do before, after, or during and after. That's with your OneNote and Loop components that was talked about in our Loop session. Microsoft Stream and Hyperlink, as well as the survey polls, got pushed back another month. Co-organizer updates in team webinars and town halls. This is a big deal, especially for those who have co-organizers set up within these particular types of team meetings. Before this update, it's limited to what that co-organizer can do. The organizer can do a lot. Co-organizers can probably do about half of what an organizer can do. Basically, what this feature is going to do is give you a lot of the same, pretty much everything that an organizer can do, a co-organizer can do. That includes being able to change title, date, time, description, publish, or even cancel that event, which was all part of what the organizer could do previous to that. So I'm looking forward to that. I do a lot of webinars, and I'm looking forward to that in this particular scenario. So that got pushed a bit back. In fact, it was mid-April to late April. Now it's going to be June to mid-June for targeted, and then it looked like in middle of June to early July for generally available. I don't know if you have any clip champs out there that like that product. So that is actually going to be getting automatic captioning, and that's coming out here. Looks like general available early April to mid-April. So next month we're going to be getting a lot of those capabilities. And then there was some changes to the site usage reports that are in M365. It's going to be a redesign of all that. Well, the problem with that is that there's a lot going on to it. So it looks like it got pushed back a lot. Talking about it was late Jan or in January. Now we're talking March and April for preview. So if you signed up for preview, you can do that. Otherwise, generally available. Then now we're talking about late June to late July is when it's coming out. The other one I thought was interesting is this one. Was the whole use of Apple AirPods for Teams meetings. That, you know, it can work. It's not necessarily a certified device, but it seems like they're treating it like a certified device with some of these updates. The ability to do mute and unmute yourself in those meetings, I think, is going to be very positive for those who like to use their AirPods for those things. And then lastly, I want to hit admin actions that I want to make sure you guys are up on top of, because there's a lot of things happening. Number one, if you haven't figured out about the new teams, you need to get that ready to go within your organization. If you haven't been testing it, if you don't have your users starting to do that flip over, you got to get it done, because guess what? March 31st, in 20 days, it's going to happen automatically for you. So make sure you're ready for that. So get that information. And by the way, as we reported a couple weeks ago, or a couple meetings ago, there is a new usage report inside the Teams client. Go ahead and click on that link. We're in PowerPoint Live. Get to that if you haven't done that already. Stream, by the way, nah, Heather, they didn't really postpone it. That's kind of that Message Center post that came out probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago. No, they didn't do that. They are more. Seems like they're being a little bit more acceptable of some exceptions to the rule, but realistically, that deadline is the deadline. So keep that in mind. The other deadline I've been having a lot of conversations with people about, Stream Classic retirement, and that's happening here in April. So make sure if you haven't moved over off of that Stream Classic into Stream SharePoint or OneDrive, make sure you do that, get rid of that. All those Stream Classic videos are going to be deleted at that point. They should have been moved over. And then don't forget Teams Live Event, everybody. Teams Live Event is retiring here in September. So if you haven't looked at Town Hall, if you haven't looked at Webinar, make sure you're looking at those things and make sure you're ready for those pieces. That's a good question, Brent. I thought it was for new teams. I thought it was everybody was new teams deadline, but I could be mistaken. Any of my Microsoft compadres, if you know that one, please throw it in there. Delve is retiring, and then, I'm not going to say the last one because I said that the last couple times. So outside of that, I think there is no other things that I have. Michelle, if you want to take control and keep going.
You bet. Thank you so much for all those updates. Did you say Delve is retiring?
Yeah.
Oh,
finally. I mean, I know that thing's been out there forever.
Yeah. It's almost like InfoPath and Delve. I'm like, what? Yeah, that's
Brian Call, do not say that word. I'm not going to say that word. Not happening.
Oh, then I guess
not today.
You didn't. I did. That's great. All right, let's head on over.